let me tell you something most women would never admit out loud. When we choose the exciting guy over the one who actually treated us right, there's a moment that comes later. A moment when we're lying next to him, and something feels off. And in that silence, a thought creeps in that we try to push away. But it keeps coming back. Here's the part that might surprise you. There's a timeline to what happens next. A pattern that plays out in phases, and most men have no idea it's even happening. They're too busy wondering what they did wrong to notice the shifts in her behavior, the subtle signs, the things she does when doubt starts creeping in, the man she left versus the man she chose. What actually happens when the excitement starts to fade? Does she think about you? Does she compare? And if she does, what does that look like from the inside? In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what happens in her mind, phase by phase. What triggers each shift, what she won't say out loud, and what it means for where you stand. Let's break it down. Now, before I go any further, let me be clear about something. This isn't about making her the villain. And it's definitely not about sitting around waiting for her to come back. This is about understanding what's actually happening. The psychology behind her choice. The pattern that plays out after. And most importantly, what it means for you. Because here's what I've learned from watching this play out over and over again. Women don't choose men logically. We choose based on feelings. And feelings, they shift. Sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once. So let's start with the part most men get wrong. Why she actually chose him in the first place. Most men assume she chose him because he's better, more attractive, more successful, more interesting. And that assumption, it keeps you stuck. Because you start comparing yourself to someone you barely know, trying to figure out what he has that you don't. But here's the truth. Her choice wasn't a logical evaluation of who's the better man. It was an emotional response to how he made her feel in the moment. Let me explain what's actually happening. First, there's the dopamine factor. New relationships flood the brain with feel-good chemicals. Everything feels exciting, intense, alive. And that intensity, it's addictive. The problem is, it's also temporary. But in the moment, it feels like everything. Second, there's novelty bias. The human brain is wired to pay attention to what's new. What's unfamiliar feels more interesting than what's stable. You were probably consistent, reliable, present. And ironically, that consistency made you feel safe, predictable, less exciting. Third, there's emotional intensity. Some men create emotional highs and lows, drama, uncertainty, push and pull. And while that sounds exhausting, it also feels thrilling. The ups feel higher because the lows exist. It's not healthy, but it is stimulating. Here's what this means for you. She didn't choose him because you weren't enough. She chose him because her brain was chasing a feeling, a chemical rush, a spark that felt more urgent than the steady warmth you offered. And here's the part most men completely miss. That spark. It has an expiration date. Excitement fades. Novelty wears off. And when it does, something interesting starts to happen. But before I show you the timeline of what comes next, let me give you a quick roadmap of where we're going. Here's what's coming. I'm going to walk you through the 4 phases of her realization timeline. Phase 1 is justification, where she convinces herself she made the right choice. Phase 2 is doubt, where the cracks start to show. Phase 3 is regret, where she starts thinking about you more than she wants to admit. And phase 4 is full realization, where she finally understands what she lost. Each phase has specific signs, specific behaviors, things she does that most men completely overlook because they're too caught up in their own pain to notice. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which phase she's in right now. And more importantly, you'll understand what's coming next. But first, let's look at what actually happens to the man she chose once the initial excitement starts to fade. Let's talk about what's actually happening on his side. The man she chose. In the beginning, everything feels electric. The conversations are intense. The chemistry is undeniable. She feels seen, desired, alive, and for a while, that feeling is enough to overshadow everything else. But here's what happens around month 3 or 4. The dopamine starts to level off. The novelty isn't new anymore. And suddenly, the things that felt exciting start to feel different. I call this the dopamine cliff. It's that moment when the brain stops flooding her with feel-good chemicals every time she sees him. When the highs aren't as high. When she starts to notice things she ignored before. Maybe it's the way he handles conflict. Maybe it's how he treats other people. Maybe it's the instability she once found thrilling now starting to feel exhausting. The unpredictability that used to be exciting. Now it just feels unreliable. Here's what most men don't understand. The traits that create intense attraction in the beginning are often the same traits that create problems later. Spontaneity becomes inconsistency. Confidence becomes arrogance. Mystery becomes distance. And somewhere in that shift, something else starts happening. She starts comparing, not consciously at first. It's subtle. She's having a frustrating moment with him, and suddenly a memory of you surfaces. The way you listened, the way you showed up, the way you made her feel safe without making her feel smothered. She pushes the thought away, tells herself she made the right choice. But the thought doesn't disappear. It just waits. This is what I mean by comparison contrast. When the reality of what she chose starts falling short, her brain automatically searches for a reference point. And that reference point, it's often the man she left behind. Now, she's not going to admit this. Not yet. Maybe not ever out loud. But it's happening. In quiet moments. In arguments. In the space between what she expected and what she got. This is the foundation for everything that comes next. Because once comparison starts, it's very hard to stop. And that brings us to phase 1 of her realization timeline. Phase 1. Justification. This typically happens in the first 1 to 2 months after she made her choice. During this phase, she's actively convincing herself she made the right decision. Every doubt gets pushed down. Every red flag gets rationalized. She's invested now, and her brain is working overtime to protect that investment. Here's what this looks like from the outside. She might post more on social media. Happy couple content. Stories about how great things are. And if you're watching, it stings. But here's what you need to understand. The louder the justification, the more she's trying to convince herself. People who are genuinely content don't need to broadcast it. She might also go completely silent toward you. No contact. No checking in. Maybe even blocking you or avoiding places where she might run into you. This isn't because she doesn't think about you. It's because she's actively trying not to. Through mutual friends, you might hear how happy she is. How perfect he is. How she's never felt this way before. And again, that's the justification phase. Talking. Here's why this phase is actually good for you. She's working too hard. When someone is truly at peace with a decision, they don't need to defend it constantly. The fact that she's building walls means there's something on the other side she's protecting herself from. Your move during this phase. Complete absence. Don't reach out. Don't check her social media. Don't ask mutual friends about her. Let her have her justification phase without any interference from you. Because here's what happens next. The justification can only last so long. Eventually, reality starts to crack through. And that's when phase 2 begins. Phase 2. Doubt. This usually starts somewhere between month 2 and month 4. Something happens. A fight. A disappointment. A moment where he lets her down in a way she didn't expect. And in that moment, the justification starts to crack. This is when doubt creeps in. She doesn't announce it. She doesn't even fully acknowledge it to herself. But the questions start. Did I make the right choice? Was I too quick to walk away from something stable? Is this really what I wanted? Here's where things get interesting for you. During the doubt phase, she starts reaching out. But not directly. Not yet. She's testing the waters. Seeing if you're still there. Seeing if you still care. What does this look like? Maybe she likes an old photo of yours on social media. Random. Out of nowhere. Maybe she watches all your stories but never comments. Maybe she asks a mutual friend about you. Casually, like she's just making conversation. She might even reach out with something small. A meme that reminded her of you. A question about something only you would know. A hey, how have you been? That seems innocent but isn't. This is where most men completely blow it. They see the contact and get excited. They respond immediately. They pour out everything they've been feeling. They make themselves completely available. And just like that, they killed the doubt phase. Because here's the psychology. If you're too available, too eager, too easy to get back, you confirm that she made the right choice by leaving. The doubt disappears because you just showed her you never moved on. Your move during this phase. Warm but unaffected. Respond, but don't chase. Be pleasant, but not desperate. Let her feel your presence without feeling your need. Remember what I said earlier about her choice not being about your value. This is where you prove it. Not by explaining, not by convincing, but by showing her through your energy that you're doing just fine. If you can hold steady through this phase, something shifts. And that shift, that's phase 3. Phase 3. Regret. This typically hits somewhere between month 4 and month 8. By now, the relationship with him has lost its shine. The excitement is gone. The problems she once ignored are now impossible to miss. And in that space, you start to grow in her mind. Not the real you. The idealized you. This is what psychologists call rosy retrospection. Her brain starts editing the past. The good times with you get amplified. The reasons she left get minimized. She starts remembering the best version of what you had together. And the regret becomes real. During this phase, the contact changes. It's no longer subtle. No longer indirect. She reaches out with intention. Maybe it's a late-night message. Vulnerable. Honest. Something like, I've been thinking about you lately. Maybe it's an apology for how things ended. Maybe it's a confession that she made a mistake. She might bring up specific memories. Inside jokes. Moments you shared. Things that only the two of you would understand. She's trying to rebuild connection. Trying to see if the door is still open. Here's what's happening psychologically. She's no longer just doubting her choice. She's actively regretting it. And she's looking for evidence that coming back is possible. This is where the power dynamic shifts completely. You were once the one wondering where you stood. Now she's the one uncertain. You were once the one seeking clarity. Now she's the one reaching for it. Your move during this phase. Measured engagement. Don't shut her out. But don't throw the gates wide open either. Let her feel welcome without feeling guaranteed. This is your moment to demonstrate that you've grown, that you're not the same person she left. That time without her has made you stronger, not weaker. Because here's what separates men who win from men who wait forever. The ones who win don't need her to come back. They've built something worth coming back to. And that brings us to phase 4. The final phase, and the hardest one to understand. Phase 4. Full realization. This can take anywhere from 8 months to years. Sometimes it's triggered by time. Sometimes by a major life event. A breakup with him. A moment of deep loneliness. A realization that what she's been chasing isn't what she actually needs. This is when it hits her completely. She understands now, not just that she made a mistake, but what she actually lost. The comparison isn't abstract anymore. It's concrete. She sees clearly what you offered and what she walked away from. During this phase, you might see genuine effort, not just contact, but real attempts to reconnect. Apologies that go deeper than surface level. Vulnerability that feels different from before. She might reach out with no games. No tests. Just honesty. An acknowledgement that she was wrong. A question about whether there's any chance. But here's the truth, most people won't tell you. This phase doesn't always lead to action. Sometimes the realization stays internal. Sometimes pride gets in the way. Sometimes too much time has passed, and reaching out feels impossible. And here's where your position matters most. By the time she reaches full realization, you're not the same person anymore. You've grown. You've moved forward. You've become the man she always sensed you could be, but didn't wait around to see. That's the irony of this whole timeline. Her realization is often too late. Not because you closed the door, but because you outgrew the version of yourself she left. And that leads me to the controversial truth that most coaches and videos won't say out loud. Here's the part nobody wants to say. She might never tell you she regrets it. Not because she doesn't feel it, but because admitting she was wrong cost something. It costs her pride. It cost her image. It costs her the story she's been telling herself and everyone else. Women don't just walk back into a man's life and say, "I made a mistake. I should have chosen you." That requires a level of vulnerability that most people avoid their entire lives. So what does her regret actually look like? It looks like silence that carries weight. It looks like a name she never mentions because it still stirs something. It looks like watching your life from a distance, hoping you're doing well, but also hoping you haven't completely moved on. It looks like a thought that crosses her mind at 2 in the morning. A memory that surfaces when she's alone. A comparison she makes every time he disappoints her. Here's the controversial part. Her realization is almost inevitable. Time does what time does. Reality eventually catches up with every choice based purely on excitement. But your availability, that's not guaranteed. And that's the real power shift. She may spend months or years coming to terms with what she lost. But you don't owe her a seat at the table just because she finally figured it out. Her realization is her journey. Your growth is yours. And by the time those two timelines meet, you get to decide if the door is still open. That's not revenge. That's not playing games. That's just what happens when a man stops waiting and starts building. So where does that leave you right now? Here's what I want you to take away from everything we've talked about. You're not stuck. You're not powerless. And you're not defined by her choice. Whether she's in phase 1, still convincing herself she made the right call, or phase 4, finally understanding what she walked away from. The timeline is hers to travel, but your life, that's yours to build. I want to hear from you. Which phase do you think she's in right now? Are you seeing the signs we talked about? Or are you in that early stage where everything still feels raw and confusing? Drop a comment below. I read them, and more than that, I learn from them. Every story shared here helps someone else feel less alone in what they're going through. Because here's what I believe: this channel isn't just about understanding women, it's about understanding yourself. The patterns, the psychology, the moments where everything shifts if you know what to look for. And if this video gave you even one insight you didn't have before, hit that subscribe button. We're building something here. A space where men can actually make sense of what's happening instead of just suffering through it in silence. One last thing. You were never the problem. You were just the man she wasn't ready for yet. And sometimes, that says more about her timing than your worth. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.